What's up, people? Well, we ain't got a lot to talk about between Florida and LSU. Boy, you're looking at the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl Florida Gators right here. We're going to wait for a couple people to hop on, and we're going to get rolling here. If you're just joining us, I'm Dylan Denmark. You can catch me on Twitter right there at Dylan_Denmark. I know a lot of you guys have already dropped a lot of comments. I'm going to get to those. Boy, not the outcome Gator Nation was expecting when they went to Baton Rouge. Thought they could get away with one with it being a noon kick, and man, not good at all. Not the outcome. Defense didn't play good. Offense couldn't run the ball, and Gator Nation's hot. I'm gonna wait about one more minute, and then we'll get rolling. Yeah, Gator Bowl. That's what a lot of people are projecting. Florida Clemson Gator Bowl. I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about Brett McMurphy, who covers college football. That's what it looks like Florida's headed. All right. Welcome to the Gators Final Report. This is Dylan Denmark, your host. We are at the Voice of College Football on the SEC channel and the Florida Gator channel. Make sure you guys are giving a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. LSU comes out 49-42. The spread came out earlier this week. Florida was, I think they opened as a 2 or 3 point favorite, and it closed at 11. That was shocking to me. I didn't think Florida was going to win this game by 11. If you looked at every big game that Florida's played, forget USF, forget Vandy, Florida was either in a really close game or they trailed at the half. And again, it happened again today. Florida trailed in the first half, couldn't do anything, run the ball consistently. There was like Florida with Anthony Richardson and Damian Pierce, Aaron Jones, they would have, all their biggest run would be 7 yards, but then they wouldn't do anything after that. I think Florida finished with 39 yards rushing in the first half. There were a couple of interceptions. Defensively, oh my goodness, I'm going to get to it a little bit later. LSU ran the same exact play, power and counter, on the last 2 drives. Take away the very end of the drive or the very last drive they had where they got the first down to put the game away. On their last 2 drives, LSU ran the ball every single play except once. And this is a Florida Gator team that's known for its run defense. The run defense that held Alabama to 91 yards. The run defense that only gave up just over 100 yards to Kentucky. I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was just no adjustments at all. If LSU just saw something in the film, and then Florida obviously didn't adjust during the game or in the second half, because hell, LSU kept doing it, and the running back had almost 300 yards. I think he finished with 287, school record, had over 300 yards rushing for the team. But this is, wow. I mean, and hats off to Coach O again. He's done it again. He was on the hot seat, quote unquote. Job is on the line. This has happened 3 times now. A lot of people say 2. This is 3 now. This season, last season, and also remember 2017. LSU had just came off losing to Troy. Remember, Ed Orgeron took over for Coach O. I think it was in the middle of the 2016 season after they lost to Auburn. Comes in 2017. They don't get the start they want, and then everybody's calling for Coach O to be fired. They beat Florida. It was Florida's 4-win season, but Florida was in the middle of the year, like middle of October, just like it is now. And Florida lost that game 17-16, and Florida missed the extra point. But wow, this was crazy. So guys, continue dropping your comments. We're gonna get to what Dan Mullen said after the game. He said we'll keep evaluating the quarterbacks. That was the biggest thing that I saw so far on Twitter from the people that report, Nick De La Torre and company. David Waters as well. Mulling on coaching changes in season, says he doesn't like jumping to conclusions. likes to know facts on everything he does before making decisions. So it'll be interesting to see what Florida does from here, because you have 3 losses before your bye week, before you play Georgia. Georgia's playing Kentucky right now. Georgia's numero uno in the country. And Florida, it looks okay. The good thing today, it looks like you found your quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Emory Jones just, I don't know. He wasn't seeing the field well. Guys were covered. He was throwing it behind them, throwing it straight to the DBs, and LSU didn't have their 1 and 2 best DBs on the field, Ricks and Singleton. And those weren't even the only 2 guys. You saw the list. It was like 7 deep of the guys that LSU didn't have. And Florida doesn't come out with the win. Florida still finished with like 470 yards total. But you turn the ball over 4 times. You can't win games in the SEC turning the ball over 4 times like Florida did against Kentucky on the road too. And it didn't even feel like a hostile environment. Let me know if y'all felt something different. It felt the environment. This is going to be a little bit of hyperbole, a little exaggerate. It felt like the environment was very Florida Missouri nude. You would think the game being at LSU that LSU was going to have a lot of their fans rowdy, and it wasn't like that at all. At least to start the game. Of course, they got into it in the second half when it became a real game. But it was amazing. Defense, Todd Grantham. Florida's defense is back to what it was last year. If Dan Mullen ever wants to compete for a national title, let me take a step back. If Dan Mullen wants to beat Georgia, wants to compete and win the East, and go to Atlanta consistently and win SEC titles and compete with Alabama, whoever's best in the West, you got to get rid of Todd Grantham. There's been too many times, time and time again, where Todd Grantham has just given up these clunker-type games. I don't know who you want to blame it on. Obviously, he's the head of the defense, so he gets the blame. But, I mean, that was inexcusable. It was time and time again. They ran the same exact play over and over again. And that's how LSU finishes with 454 yards, only 130 through the air, 320 rushing. And also, LSU had 2 big plays through the air, and they were both called back, if you remember. Well, I think one was in each half. Both might have been in the first half. I can't remember. One was like a 50-yarder, and the other was a touchdown. That's another thing. Now, one play, I will excuse Florida with this. Brent Cox was being held from the left tackle. He would have probably gotten a sack had he not been held, and that got a big play. But the amount of times Florida was in 3rd and long, the amount of times Florida couldn't get off the field, the amount of times the coverage broke down. And Florida's front 4, front 5, the box was able to get pressure on Max Johnson. So it wasn't like Johnson was just sitting there taking all day to throw. I mean, there was times where he had to roll out and make a play, and he did. So it wasn't that. It was more of to me, it felt like the back 7. So, but this was wow. I thought this was going to be a close game like it has been for most of the last 5-6 years. I didn't expect a loss, and I didn't expect a loss with LSU dominating the ball, dominating the line of scrimmage. And Florida, another thing, Florida didn't even have any penalties. Florida goes, last time it was on the road, Florida had 15 penalties, 8 false starts, doesn't get a single one a day. No penalties, 4 turnovers, but you give up 320 yards on the ground, and that's SEC football. If you're just joining us, I am Dylan Denmark. I run this show solo at the Voice of College Football on the SEC and the Florida Gator channel. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. Let me put that right here. Guys, continue to drop your guys' comments as I'm going to read a few right now. I seen Jet has dropped a lot. He said LSU offense was 50% on 3rd down, I believe. Much higher than 50% in the second half, thanks to Grantham, and Grantham is still at UF. Yeah, I thought Mullen should have made a decision last year with Dan Mullen after how horrific the defense was. This was all assignment football today. You know, last year a lot of it was missed tackles. Today was just being blown off the line of scrimmage. 320 yards. Even offensively, too, in the first half, Florida had 35 yards rushing. LSU had 100. And the total yards were pretty even, 200 apiece. It was crazy. Jed also drops in. Emory has been on campus for years, and Mullen has not developed him at all. AR-15 on campus for a year and a half. Mullen hasn't helped him either. I would agree, hasn't helped him at all. And the thing that I understand, Florida fans want to see Anthony Richardson. Yes, he has to be the guy going forward. I think he's shown that today. He should get the start against Georgia. Although Mullen said after the game, we'll evaluate going forward. Yada yada yada. Coach speak. Whatever. Anthony Richardson. A lot of fans want him to play, so you're going to get that. But just understand, he's going to make a lot of freshman mistakes, like you saw in the first half. The dude, I forget who he threw to. I think it was Justin Shorter. It might have been Copeland. Can't remember the first interception he threw. The ball was nowhere near the receiver, and he was well covered. Shouldn't have made that throw. And the last interception he had, off his back foot, lofted it. Rick Wells wasn't able to get to it. Again, I'm fine with fans telling me that Anthony Richardson needs to start, and he does. But just be willing to know that he's going to make a lot of mistakes, like Emory Jones did in the first two games against Florida Atlantic in South Florida. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this, Jet. I'm starting from the top of the comments that were on from the beginning of the show. Emory did stick in. Remember when Anthony Richardson got hurt? Emory Jones had to come in on a 3rd and 13, and he had to complete a ball. I forget who was running the crossing route. I think it was Copeland, and that continued the drive. Florida does have, essentially a good problem having two quarterbacks that can play. Doesn't mean that I know Florida fans think that both are or that Anthony Richardson needs to be the dude. But, I mean, it's good to have that possibility that, okay, if you know that Anthony Richardson, if he does run the ball, well, if he gets hurt, we can throw Emory in, and we can still run the same type of plays. That's something that a lot of quarterbacks on teams, a lot of them don't have the same similar type prototypes. Some are pros, some are spread, some are athletic, some are not. And Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson run the same type, so Dan Mullen doesn't have to change the plays as much. I'm trying to get to a couple of you guys more comments. Guys, continue to drop a comment at the Voice of College Football at the Gator channel, the SEC channel. Yeah, Jet said, Mullen officially on the hot seat. I'd like to hear the call and show WRUF today. Yeah, it's probably be like that all week. All right, so I'm glad Scrummy dropped this. Let's talk Florida coach candidates. Dan Mullen's not on the hot seat. I know people want to call for his job. You can call for Todd Grantham's job. That's fine. Dan Mullen just got an extension a couple months ago. Dan Mullen's not going anywhere. I know people won't be happy. You can have your opinion, but I'm a person that doesn't like to waste time. The only way Florida fires and Scott Strickland fires Dan Mullen is if he loses out. I think that's about the only way. And I don't even know if then they would make a move. Florida will probably lose to Georgia in 2 weeks, and then the last part of your schedule will be Missouri, Florida State, Samford, and I'm missing one other team. Florida State, duh. Those are all winnable games. Florida probably wins all those games, and I don't think Scott Strickland's going to pull the plug on Dan Mullen on a 9-3, 8-4 season. I don't think it happens. Florida, Dan Mullen would have to bomb like Will Muschamp did with a 4-win season, and I don't see that happening. Driver Lane says we need a better recruiter. Recruiting in a new DC. Yeah, I agree with the DC. It's kind of hard right now, but Charlie Strong, he was supposed to be on Florida staff, remember? And then last minute, I think he ended up going to Alabama. Boy, it'd be nice to have him. And yeah, recruiting with Florida and recruiting, Yeah, okay, yes or no? Yes, Florida needs to be better with recruiting, but Dan Mullen does a really good job in the transfer portal. I think people consider that win recruiting because if you look at all the transfer added, the additions he's added, a lot of them are 4 and 5 stars with Bowman, like Lingard, although they haven't played yet, and Justin Shorter, who, by the way, had a really good game. I think he finished with over 100 yards. He had 5 catches for 95 yards at one point with a pair of touchdowns. But yeah, you have to get better with recruiting. And you saw there LSU had 7, 8 guys out, 2 of their starting DBs, and then their backup DBs were probably, like Todd Blackledge said on the broadcast, they could probably be starting anywhere in the country. I mean, probably outside of of the top teams, and they could probably be all conference, and they were making plays left and right. Pat Dooley gave offense a D plus and offense a D plus and the defense an F minus. He says LSU had 105 yards, 45 yards called back on penalties plus a touchdown. Yeah. Remember the two? I think the 2 plays, one was 50 and another was like 30. So that's like 2 plays right there. One that they scored a touchdown on. And Florida gifted LSU with 4 turnovers. So name one place Mullen has taken Florida. Mac didn't. This is from Tall for My Height. Nowhere yet. Mullen's taken him to 3 New Year's Six bowls. Mac didn't. Mullen almost doesn't count unless you're playing horseshoe, but came really close to beating Alabama in the SEC title. Mac never stood a chance in the SEC title when he played Bama. I mean, if we're here to nitpick, I don't think it really matters. Mac wasn't a really good coach. Mac came to Florida to fix the offense, and he didn't. Joseph Edenfield, Florida up front on both sides of the ball, not SEC quality. They weren't today. And it's weird. If you guys didn't catch the conversation I had, I talked with Jeff Cardozo Monday, and I asked him, I said, the first 4 games, Florida was able to run the ball and do whatever they wanted. And it seems like Florida needs to run the ball to set up the passing game. And that's what Anthony Richardson needs. So if he's going to be the guy, which he should be, and most people would agree, Anthony Richardson needs to run the ball and have a stable running game to then set up the pass. If you saw time and time again, he would fake the pump up like he was going to run and then drop back and have a wide open wheel or someone go right down the seam. And that opens it up, opens your playbook up so much because the defense has to account for so much more with Anthony Richardson in the game compared to Emory Jones. And Florida in the first 4 games against USF, FAU, Bama, Tennessee, Florida dominated line of scrimmage. Florida ran the ball at will, offensively and defensively. And I don't know what's happened since, but it didn't happen against Kentucky. It didn't happen against Vanderbilt. Or it happened against Vanderbilt, but I'm not going to consider Vanderbilt. I'm not going to, waste time talking about Vanderbilt. And it didn't happen today. LSU, I'm going to pull up exactly what they did on the last 3 drives. Let me see. So their last drive where they got the first down, they ran the same counter. They ran the same counter power. The second to last drive where it was tied and LSU scored the game-winning touchdown, it was 10 plays, 68 yards, 5 minutes off the clock, almost 6. First, it was run, false start, run. And then the pass on a 4th and goal the sweep he had. So that was when the game was tied at 42 apiece and LSU took the lead. When it was 35 all, LSU took the lead 42-35. LSU had another 10-play drive, 75 yards. It started with this: run, pass incomplete, run. End of the quarter, run. What happened? I mean, and it wasn't like there was a threat to go outside and then someone goes up the middle. It wasn't like LSU wasn't even a threat all day throwing the ball. It was counter here, counter there, power here, power there, and no adjustments at all. Kenneth from Crunch Time said that the Rays extension would have an effect on Mullen, that if he needed to be fired, UF would find the buyout money to pull the trigger. Yeah, again, I mean, I'm sure they could find the money. And when you're talking about big boosters, University of Florida has no problem with writing a check and letting coach go on his way. But I don't see it happening again. Unless Dan Mullen loses out, Florida could go 8-4, and they're not going to pull the trigger. He just got an extension in June or sometime in the summer, and his contract runs through 2026. So, not saying that I agree or disagree. I wouldn't fire Dan Mullen at the end of the season. I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat. Has he coached well? No, but I'm not going to pull the trigger right now. If I were the AD, and I don't think it's going to happen anyway. So. Yeah, that's a good comment from Scott. Maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. Yeah, I mean, it was early in the year. You don't know how good Alabama was. I mean, they lost to A&M, and we'll see how they do tonight against Mississippi State. But again, I mean, it seemed like Florida in the first half. I want to go back to that a little bit. It was 21-6. I understand Florida goes 29 seconds right down the field, and they use their timeouts. Ironically, what they didn't do it against Kentucky. But it was 21-6. LSU had complete control of the line of scrimmage. LSU ran the ball, did what it wanted to do. They were 2 for 7 on third down. Florida was 1 for 6. Both teams had right at 200 yards total. But LSU had 100 yards on the ground, and Florida had 35 yards rushing. That I don't know how that happens when you have been able to. I mean, again, the first 4 games you ran the ball. You're top 5 in the country or top 10, whatever it is now, with just under 400 yards on the ground with an average. And today, you finish. Let me see what Florida finished with rushing yards. 138. 138, 4 turnovers with no penalties. AR is the guy, but Dan is too busy loving on Emory, so he won't start. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think Florida Dan Mullen did the right decision starting Emory in his first all the games up to now, but you have to go with Anthony Richardson. You have to go with Anthony Richardson for the Georgia game. Dan Mullen, if you didn't see after the game, he said that we're going to continue evaluating quarterbacks and yada, yada, yada. He just gave normal coach speak, but you have to go with Anthony Richardson if you want a chance to win. He just gives you – the defense has to account for so much more with Anthony Richardson, and Anthony Richardson can make plays that Emory Jones can't, especially when the play breaks down and he's able to roll out and make dudes miss. Emory Jones is good at running the football, but nowhere near as good as Anthony Richardson. I mean, there was that one play, was it a 3rd and 4, I think it was, where Richardson rolls out left, tucks it, runs over to defender. He, just popped right off of him, and then he falls forward and gets the first down. Emory Jones doesn't do that. Emory Jones doesn't do that. And this is the one thing I wanted to hit on, too. I wonder if Dan Mullen is going to fall under the same thing that Kirby Smart has right now at Georgia, or what he had at Georgia. If you remember, Jake Fromm leads Georgia to the national title. Fields comes in. Fields is probably the better guy. Obviously, no, everything's now hindsight 2020. Fields should have started over Fromm, but Kirby Smart just couldn't get over the fact that Jake Fromm led his team to a national title in 2017, and he never made a decision to pull him. Now, I don't think Dan Mullen has that decision right now because Emory Jones hasn't – yes, he's been loyal, but he hasn't accomplished anything because, well, he sat behind Kyle Trask and Felipe Franks. Hopefully, and I don't think it'll happen, Dan Mullen doesn't fall to this loyalty of Emory Jones, and he just goes with Anthony Richardson. Now, still going forward, you still need both quarterbacks for the rest of the season. You still need both quarterbacks to play against Georgia. I don't think Anthony Richardson can go the entire game. I think he can, but I think Florida is more successful with Anthony Richardson playing most of snaps and then giving a couple to Emory Jones. My personal opinion. Not much activities in the comments. I think people are sharpening their pitchforks. Yeah. If you so I had a lot of people in the comments for the Kentucky game. Obviously Gator Nation wasn't happy. The Vandy game was nothing. I didn't have anybody. Which I mean I understand it was, noon kick, whatever. And then we're back to normal with we're back to blowing up the comments after another loss. Yeah, I need to read Pat Dooley's comment or his article, his back nine, I think it is. This team is not what I thought it was. Yeah. I thought what Florida was what they were in the first 4 games. Able to run the football, able to have decent defense. And I say decent defense, that means what they did in the first 4 games and contain the run game up front, have a pass rush, something they didn't have last year. Tackle well. I don't think LSU had many broken tackles. But the secondary, oh my goodness, the secondary was an atrocious at times. And that was after Max Johnson rolls out and makes a couple plays. I think LSU had a couple 3rd and longs. And I mean, up front, again, if you're just joining us, LSU went counter. Their last 2 drives where it was tied at 35 and then tied at 42. They had 2 10-play drives that went the length of the field, and I think they threw it or attempted to throw it 1 time. So 19 of the 20 plays, LSU ran the ball every play and no adjustments. And they had continued that leading up to that too. I don't know how that happens. I don't. That's a lot of coaching, but I mean, when you're being manhandled on front, that's understandable. But I mean, you got Carter, you have Diabate, you have Moon, you have all these dudes that were playing so good in the first 4 games, and I guess something's changed. Something's changed with Florida defensively because I definitely thought, again, the over-under was like 57, I think, and Florida was a big favorite. I didn't think Florida was going to win by 11. This game, regardless of the record, has always been close, no matter who's good or bad. Florida opened as a 2-point favorite, went to 11. And another thing, Florida, in every single big game, has not had a lead at the half or had a substantial lead. Take out Vandy, take out USF. Florida had a 14-point lead against FAU. They trailed Alabama 21-9. They led Tennessee, I think, by 14. If it wasn't 14, it was a little less than 14. But it wasn't really convincing. It was like, man, Tennessee's in this game. Tennessee, if they did like this one play here, it could be a different ball game. And you would think today LSU has 2 defensive backs out, Ricks and Singleton, and you saw the list in the first half of all the dudes that were not playing, and Florida was trailing pretty much the most of the first half. And if it weren't for a deep ball that Florida scores a drive in less than 30 seconds, it was 21-6, and you're going in a half on the road again. Again, if you're just joining us, this is at the Voice of College Football, the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys are subscribing to not only his channel, but also the 2 channels that we're broadcasting here at the Voice of College, at the SEC channel and at the Florida Gator channel. But a disappointing loss. Florida loses 49-42, a loss that many fans did not expect. LSU dominates up front, running the ball, controlling the line of scrimmage, doing whatever it wanted to do. And now Florida will welcome the Georgia Bulldogs, a place that's not too far from where I live right now in Jacksonville, Florida, where the Jags play. And let me see what Georgia's doing right now with Kentucky. I saw the first drive, but it doesn't look any better from here for old Gator faithful. Georgia leads 7-0 beginning in the second quarter, if you're wondering. Georgia leads Kentucky 7-0. So I think the big question going forward is, what does Florida do from here? Um, I don't think Emory Jones is the dude. You definitely have to roll with Anthony Richardson. It's kind of hard to say. You can attempt to play spoiler with Georgia. I think that's about the only game that's really meaningful. That's left on their schedule because it's Missouri, it's Florida State, Samford, and there's another team that I can't think of at the moment. But wow. So Dan Mullen, I'm going to segue into this. Dan Mullen, since he's been at Florida, 2-2 against Mark Stoops, hasn't beat Nick Saban. I think he's 1-3 against LSU. Think about that. 1-3. Now, obviously, the 2019 year, understandable. Florida beats LSU in 2018. Burrow pick 6. LSU beats them in 19, understand? So it's 1-1. Florida lays an egg at home in what was the last game of the regular season before Florida played Alabama. Lay an egg, and then Florida lays another egg today. And Coach O, my goodness, I mean, anytime he's on the hot seat, he needs to play Florida. 2017, Coach O loses to Troy. People wanted him fired. He plays Florida. It's cooled off. Last season, people wanted him gone. They were tired of him. Even after the year after he won the national title, he beats Florida. You go into the offseason with completely different what was the word? Not expectations, but the program, the mentality is a lot different after LSU beats Florida. And then today, LSU loses to LSU, has already a couple of losses under its belt. Florida's expected to go in there, get a not an easy win, but a win that shouldn't be too hard, and it doesn't happen. And it wasn't that it happened; it was the way it happened. LSU dominates the line of scrimmage. LSU 300+ rushing yards when no team in the first 4 games that Florida played had any success of running the ball. Yeah, so I've seen a couple of comments with the new DC suggestions. Gene Chizik, former Auburn dude, now with the SEC Network. I want to know if he's still even considering coaching. I mean, I've heard this. I can't remember where I heard this from, but they pretty much said that coaching and broadcasting is pretty much the same thing, except broadcasting, it's about a third of the work with the same money. And, you know, when you get fat pockets, unless Gene Chizik wants to scratch that itch he has in the coaching, he could probably be a DC. I mean, I don't know what his aspirations are, but I mean, he's got a pretty good gig with SEC Network with Florida's very own Chris Doering and Peter Burns, but we'll see. Yeah, Luke Fickell is definitely the hot guy. I don't know. He's definitely a Northeast guy. I don't know if he would, fit Florida. You know, a lot of people when Florida last had a head coaching opening, everybody was glaring for Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly could have been a good guy at Florida, but he wouldn't be a good fit. He's more of a West Coast guy. You know, everybody was talking about Scott Frost, Chip Kelly, and then Dan Mullen was third. Scott Frost goes to Nebraska, and then Chip Kelly goes back to UCLA out west. I didn't think Chip Kelly was going to be a good fit. That doesn't mean he wasn't going to be successful, but, you know, when you're in the South and you're in the SEC in particular, you're a god. You're the most popular person in the state. And I don't know if Chip Kelly would have liked that. And that definitely fits Dan Mullen a lot better. But, you know, it's funny. I remember reading a book, Dixie, I think it was Dixieland Delight with Lane Kiffin. It was written by Clay Travis, and he was saying Lane Kiffin, you know, he had already been up the coaching ranks. He had coached for the Raiders, and then he goes to Tennessee, and the athletic director is sitting with, I forget who it was, the AD at the time for Tennessee. But Lane Kiffin's about to become the head coach at Tennessee, and the AD's like, dude, your life's about to change. Like you're about to be the most popular person. He's like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, in the state of Tennessee, it's going to be Dolly Parton, whoever the governor is, and you're going to be third. He's like, what are you talking about? And then he gets the coaching job. He's like, yeah, it's a little different in the SEC. So, but I say all that to say, I don't know if Luke Fickell would fit at Florida. It seems more of like a Northeast Big Ten type dude. And he's got a good thing going at Cincinnati. Obviously, that's not a destination job, but you know, maybe he's waiting for Notre Dame to open up. Kelly's been there for 11 years. After 10 years, it seems like most dudes move on, like Spurrier did at Florida. Fan base kind of gets irritating after unrealistic expectations. Brian Kelly's done a good job at Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame, from what most adults watching this show expect them to be competing in the playoff, and I think that's a little unrealistic considering what Alabama and Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson have done. But I mean, Brian Kelly's done a good job, and I think Luke Fickell would be wanting that job first before he came to Florida. Driver Lane, you score 42, you should win. Remember all those great Gator defenses in the past when we could only score 17 or 21. We'd learn to play defense again. We won a lot of games. Yeah. Yep. 42 points and you don't come out with a win. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. Jet says he thinks Dan Mullen has lost the locker room. I don't know if he's lost the locker room. And I mean, when you say he lost the locker room, I think of like Urban Meyer losing the Jags locker room. I know it's a completely different sport. I still think he has the respect, but I mean, it's just the execution or whatever the game plan is. It doesn't work. At least it hasn't been the last couple of games. Kentucky and this game, both on the road. Florida's the favorite in both games. Florida has 15 penalties, can't run the ball. Then you get to the LSU game, you clean up the penalties, but you still can't run the ball. I don't know how that fixes it because that wasn't an issue to start the year. So I guess it's like Pat Dooley said in his article from what Jets said. This isn't the Florida Gator team I thought it was. I'm trying to see if Dan Mullen said anything other than normal coach speak from what he said in his presser. Okay, so here we go. This is from Cassidy Hill on Twitter. She said she asked Dan Mullen what it would take to make an in-season coaching change on defense. He said, quote, I don't like to jump to conclusions. It's a long season. I don't like to know the facts on everything that's going on and what the issues are, what we're doing, and what we need to do. So Todd Grantham will be here for the rest of the year. That's what it looks like. From Nick Delatorre, he said, quote, I asked Mullen what they need to do to get back to the Gator standard because they're 2-6 in their last 8 games against Power 5. He said they'll evaluate. So normal coach speak again. And yeah, Florida loses. What's Florida's record now? They're 3-3? 4-3. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, Florida's 4-3. So you're 4-3. You've lost 3 games this year. You lose your bowl game. You lose to Atlanta, and you've lost to LSU. Think about that. Think about how the program has turned from what it was, only losing its only game to A&M on a game-winning field goal, and Florida was 8-1 going into your last game of the regular season, playing LSU, an awful LSU team that was not good. And all you got to do is beat them and get to Alabama. And whoever won that game was going to get a chance to play in the playoff. And it's been loss, Oklahoma loss, 2 cupcakes, Bama loss, Tennessee win, Kentucky loss, Vandy cupcake win, LSU loss. Think about how that dynamic has completely changed on a 180. $626 says Mullen has to make changes before the season ends to save his job going forward. Grantham, Hevesy, all these bum recruiters, fire them all. Time for Dan to get rid of these trash buddies. I don't know about. I'd agree. I'm agreeing with Todd Grantham needs to go. understand last year, Mullen and Grantham and the entire defense kept saying that it was COVID, why Florida missed so many tackles, yada yada yada, which is kind of a lame excuse because, well, I mean, everybody had to deal with COVID, but recruiting does need to get better. You can't beat Alabama and go toe to toe with Georgia and beat the top dogs in the SEC without top recruits. It's just plain and simple. For the rest of them, I mean, I don't like to make opinions on things I don't know, but I mean, Hevesy, the offensive line hasn't played well the last couple of weeks for whatever reason since the Kentucky game. And this isn't the Florida team I thought it was from the first quarter of the season. After your first 4 games and you run the ball at will against Alabama, you run the ball at will against Tennessee, and then you lose to Kentucky. There was a lot of linemen hurt going into the Tennessee game. You have 15 penalties, so that was a reason. Not saying that's an excuse, but that was why Florida wasn't able to run the ball. And I talked about that with Jeff Cardozo on these 2 channels at the SEC and at the Voice of College Football for the Gator channel, and he was like, I think Florida should be able to run the ball again. And you kind of experiment when you're playing a team that's not as good like Vanderbilt last week. Florida didn't try to run the ball because they knew they could get away with it. And then today in the first half, you have 35 yards rushing. And what was crazy, so this was another element. I think Florida had 28 plays in the first half, 18 passes, 16 runs. So it wasn't like Florida was avoiding the run at all. Florida tried to run the ball, and they couldn't. So, again, I don't know what's changed from the first 4 games to now, having just under 400 yards on the ground running, and then it'd be a complete non-factor. I guess the only thing I would change is if Anthony Richardson comes in, and so instead of having Emory Jones, and that gives the defense more accountability and more responsibility they have to do with Anthony Richardson in. Yeah, Seth, there's no way Florida, even after the Kentucky game, Florida was out of the chance for the SEC title because Georgia wasn't going to lose more than 2 games in conference. So, yeah, you can play spoiler to Georgia, and you can see what you can do to run the ball. But good luck, because at last I saw, Georgia was up 7-0 on Kentucky. Let me see what the score is now. It's now 14-0 Georgia. So, and again, and Georgia was a 23-point favorite over Kentucky. I'd like to see what the score of Georgia spread is. If I had to guess right now, Georgia probably opens up as a 17-point favorite, being a little generous, and that line goes up Georgia's favor throughout the week. And again, both teams have a bye week, so we'll see what Dan Mullen does, because he's got a lot of thinking and a lot of questions to be answered for these next 2 weeks. If you're just joining us, I'm Dylan Denmark. If you're new to the show, I see a lot of people hopping on after what was a surprising Florida loss to LSU, 49-42. This is the Gators Final Report. We're live at the SEC and at the Florida Gators channel at the Voice of College Football. Make sure we're subscribing, not only in watching these shows, but also there's an LSU postgame show if you want to get LSU coverage. There's Georgia postgame after the Kentucky game. There's Oklahoma. There's a lot of shows. If you click at the Voice of College Football and go to his featured, there's all of his channels right there. Make sure you guys are not only watching my show, but all of the other shows as well. As you can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. I host On the Mark with Denmark. I try to do a show or 2 a week and just do a couple interviews and catch up with people that know what they're talking about in the game. I caught with Jeff Cardozo. I mentioned to him Florida wasn't able to run the ball the last 2 weeks. Do they get back to that this week? He said he thought they would. And the Kentucky game, why they didn't run the ball as much, was because Florida had 3 offensive linemen hurt, didn't practice that week, and then you throw them in the game, and they were on the same page. And another thing that Florida changed today was a snap count. They didn't go with the clap that they did against Kentucky. Florida went with the guard looking back at whoever the quarterback was and then shucking his hand for the center to snap it. And that worked. No penalties after what Kentucky had against 15. But yeah, a very, very disappointing loss from Florida today. So here we go. I'm trying to look at quotes from what Dan Mullen said in the press game. Nick Delatorre tweeted out, "If you missed Dan Mullen's press conference, here's the summary. Quote, we'll evaluate, end quote, and another quote, we'll watch film." So, again, this is what – it doesn't bother me with Dan Mullen talking like he has been. Just be consistent. If you're going to always talk when times are good and talk when times are bad. And he did this, too, against Kentucky. And he did this in the presser in the Monday following the Kentucky game. When things aren't going good, Dan Mullen keeps everything like 2 to 3 words. When if you'd ask him any other time, he's open about everything. If you ask him during media days, obviously Florida didn't end the season the way it liked, but there was a lot of positive vibes going into the year. And he said Emory Jones has a rocket arm. Emory Jones hasn't thrown the ball deep downfield at all. Dan Mullen said he would use 2 backs in the backfield. That hasn't happened a lot. The running back room, saw a lot of Pierce. I like that. Saw a little bit of Davis and Naquan Wright. No Lingard, no Bowman. I'm assuming those guys aren't used to the playbook yet and are still learning, if I had to guess, because he doesn't really talk about it. And then the defense just didn't play assignment football today, being blown off the ball. LSU's offensive line down blocked and got into the second level multiple times, forcing Torrance and the defensive backfield to make tackles, and that's not good because you got to get past the front seven to get to those guys. LSU with 320 yards rushing when Alabama had 91. Kentucky had like 120, 130 rushing yards, and then today. And LSU's, I don't even think they were known for running the ball coming into today. So that's been surprising to me. Brian Hobson, he says if he doesn't fire, I think he meant fire right there, Grantham after watching the film, he'll lose all credibility. Grantham had all last season and all this season to prove himself. Yeah, I thought Mullen should have let go of Grantham last season, understanding that it was COVID year. And defense last year, they had to do everything on air. And Florida was probably the worst tackling team that was decent in the country. So, 2020, put that to a side. You can't – if Florida wants to get where it wants to go, which is compete and win the East, play with Georgia, play with Alabama in the SEC title game, and get to the playoff, Todd Grantham can't be your DC. Todd Grantham, for whatever reason, you can be the greatest coach in the world, but if you can't put your players in position to be successful, it doesn't matter how great of a coach you are. And Todd Grantham did that against Alabama. I know a lot of people want to harp on what all the third down conversions that Alabama had against Florida. But if you remember, a lot of those third down conversions, Florida was able to get the guy there. They just couldn't make the tackle. That's not coaching. Today was coaching. LSU dominates the line of scrimmage. LSU has 320 rushing yards. And LSU, I think, had 145 yards in penalties. If you were to look at that long touchdown run or pass that they had, that got called all the way back, and there was 2 of them. So, if you take that away, and I'll take one back because Brent Cox was held when he came around the left tackle. But it's inexcusable. You can't win big boy games in the SEC with this kind of defense, and you can't win games in the SEC not running the football and not able to stop the run. Because when you do those things, you're able to control time, you're able to control the last scrimmage, and that sets up the pass. And that's what happened when Anthony Richardson came in. Florida wasn't able to run the ball. Richardson comes in. LSU has to load the box more. They had to respect the run with Anthony Richardson, not as much as they had to do with Emory Jones. And you saw right away the wheel route was open. The seam was open. Crossing routes were open. And again, Anthony Richardson made a couple mistakes. The first interception wasn't a good throw. A throw he shouldn't have made. And then the last one he had throws off his back foot. But, I mean, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. When you're a freshman and you haven't played meaningful snaps and you've had an entire drive. Yes, he's had entire drives against FAU and USF, but, I mean, that's not the same level. This is LSU. These are guys that are going to be playing on Sundays and being drafted. But I think Anthony Richardson, if you're just joining us, he has to be the dude against Georgia going forward. Ryan also said you can't blame the players. Grantham and special teams coach need to be fired immediately. Yeah, another missed extra point. I don't know how that happens. If it's one thing if it's blocked or if it's not a bad hole, but this is a recurring scene over and over again. You missed the extra point against Alabama. That cost you a game because if you made the extra point, you could have got the other one. You tie at 31. Doesn't force you to go for 2 points at the end of the game. And luckily today, Anthony Richardson does what Anthony Richardson does and runs around. Then he gets a 2-point conversion. So Florida made that up. But yeah, you can't extra points. Luckily, it didn't come back and bite them today. Michael says, still not good at tackling anybody, really. No in-game defensive adjustments. Something needs to be done, or big money boosters will pull their money until changes are made. Yeah, that is true. That is true. And I don't know what the relationship is like with boosters and Dan Mullen. Again, Mullen got a nice extension this summer through 2026. So we'll see what Mullen has to do with the staff, because I don't think Mullen's going to be let go. I don't think that there's any way Dan Mullen's going to be let go. And he and everybody around the administration knows that this isn't a good season and that he has to make adjustments. Now, he's coach speaking. He says that he's not going to make coaching changes during the season. Just like he said, we'll continue evaluating quarterbacks when everybody knows moving forward that Anthony Richardson's going to be the quarterback. But we'll see how it goes. I think you have to get rid of a lot of the staff, in specifically defensively, because you had the COVID year. Understand that that's fine, but and you missed a ton of tackles. But again, there was no adjustments whatsoever from what I saw from Florida's defense. LSU, I think his name was Davis Price, ran the ball for a school record. What was it, like 287 yards? Then Mullen on Richardson, he said it's execution of it and some things he missed. He did a really good job of when he was in there. He got hot, so he stuck with him because he was kind of hot and had some momentum there offensively, close quotes. And again, if you didn't see anything that Mullen said, he kept everything pretty brief, just like he did against that Kentucky game. This was something that was really interesting to me that I saw on Twitter. So Joey Ivey, I think he's still in the NFL, but he used to play for Florida. He had this tweet that I'm sure will make the rounds if you guys haven't seen it. Joey Ivey, former Florida defensive end, said, Dan Mullen's ego is going to ruin his career. I honestly can't stand him and how he carries himself. That was I kind of turned my head a little bit. I was like, what? And I don't think Joey Ivy, he didn't play under Mullen. So I don't know if he doesn't like him or if he just is tired of the poor lack of performance from Florida today and this season, really. But I mean, Mullen's 4-6 in his last 10 games, 2-2 against Kentucky, 1-3 against LSU. Hasn't beat Bama. You beat Georgia last year, 1-2 against Georgia. And when you're at Florida, that's what you're remembered as. What you are against your rivals. You're at the University of Florida. You're known for how you do in the SEC, and specifically against Georgia, LSU, Alabama, and Florida State. Obviously, Florida State can't be worse. So Mullen's gotten all those wins against Willie Taggart, and he hasn't played Mike Norvell yet, but yeah, he needs to find a new DC. I see a couple of comments here. Ian dropped Muschamp as DC. He's at Georgia now, and Charlie Strong with the Jags now, and Charlie Strong was almost on the staff at Florida. I think last year he almost came. I think it was last year. And then for whatever reason, last minute he jumped ship and went to Bama. And then obviously he's now with the Jags with Urban Meyer. But defense needs to change. Again, I thought the pass rush, they got to Max Johnson a lot. Carter and Cox did a good job, but it was the back end. He was able to make some time, and dudes were running open. LSU was above 50% on third down. Just not winning football, specifically when you have 4 turnovers like Florida had today against LSU. If you're just joining us, this is at the Voice of College Football's YouTube channel. We're on right now with the Gators final report on the SEC and the Florida Gators channel. Make sure we're subscribing and giving a thumbs up, as we have a lot of guys hopping in. It's funny how this works. Fans, nobody came last week to the Florida Vandy post-game show, but just like the Kentucky game, Florida things don't happen their way, and then you come straight to the post-game show and you have a lot of things to say. So it's funny how that works. But guys, continue dropping your comments as we'll go a little bit more as we went just about an hour. But biggest question for Florida going forward: what do they do from here? Number one, Anthony Richardson's the guy. He has to be. He gives Florida the best chance to win going forward with Georgia and the rest of the season. 2, Florida has to get back to running the football. If Florida can't run the football, Anthony Richardson will not be successful, and he will be forced to be throwing on 3rd and long, which is not a recipe for success. If you look at what Anthony Richardson was successful with today, it was the LSU defense loading the box, respecting the run, that opening up the wheel routes, that opened down the seam for the tight ends and the running backs out of the backfield. Yes, I will have Terry Norwell on. I'll try to get him on after the Georgia game. He's on with College Sports Today. Had him on against Kentucky. That's the recipe for success for Florida going forward. You need Anthony Richardson to start. You need to be able to run the football. You need to be able to have time possession in your favor to help this defense. And also, Florida has to be better in the first half. I'm surprised I haven't heard this more. Florida, even in the games, their first 4 games, take out USF, take out Vandy. Florida led by 14 against FAU. They trailed Alabama 21-9. You led Tennessee by 14. I forget what the Kentucky score was, but it was really, really close. I think Florida might have been losing, or I think they had a 3-point lead. And then today, for the first half, you're trailing the entire time. And it was 21-6. And if it's not for a 30-second drive that Florida has, Florida's down 21-6. So, I think that Florida has to do those things in order to be successful. And then obviously up next, bye week, and then the Dogs roll into town of Jacksonville. So yeah, Florida thinks they've seen good teams so far. We'll see what Georgia does. We'll see if JT Daniels plays. Stetson Bennett's playing right now against Kentucky. So check out the post-game shows for Georgia and all the other shows that are on at the Voice of College Football. But for Florida against Georgia, they have to do what Florida has to do what it did in the second half against Alabama and what they did against Tennessee. That's control the ball, run it, have easy completions. Anthony Richardson has to be the dude going forward. Defense has to play better. Defense has to get off the field on third down, specifically something they couldn't do today, something they couldn't do against Alabama, and I don't think they did. Not against Kentucky, because Kentucky only had two third down conversions when Florida played them. James says Gators soft on defense, Mullen's suspect, offensive calls, lacking quality recruits, talent too rich in Florida to be this inept. Yeah. Florida offensively, the offensive game plan against Kentucky was awful. Vandy, you experimented. You see what you could have done because, it was Vandy, and you could throw the ball more, but they haven't abandoned the run, but it hasn't been successful. Again, if you didn't see what I said earlier, Florida had, I think, 28 plays in the first half, 18 passes, 16 runs, and Florida had 35 yards rushing on those 16 carries. So an average just over 2 yards. Florida has to have 4 to 5 yards at least to pop on the ground. And it's something that they had in the first 4 games that hasn't happened since the Kentucky game. What's happened? Well, a couple of injuries have happened. I don't really follow practice and see who's practicing throughout the week. I don't know if that plays a factor, but that shouldn't make it to where Florida runs for 450 yards or near 400 and then now 130. I mean, you should have more than 5 guys that you can rely on to run the football and control the tempo. All right, couple last comments, and then I'll let you guys go. Thank you guys for watching. This is the Gators final report. We are live at the SEC and the Florida Gators channel at the Voice of College Football. Make sure we're subscribing, giving a thumbs up to all of not only the show right now, but also the shows that all the other shows with Georgia, Oklahoma, and a lot more. And then also catch Mark Rogers every night with his call-in show as he wraps up the entire college football tonight. CK Jones says Mullen's inability to separate personal relationships from business decisions, and it is the difference between him being a good versus an average coach. Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier I was putting in a context from what Mullen did with him and Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart couldn't get off the fact with Jake Fromm after he led Fromm to a 2017 national title. He couldn't get over the fact that what he did and get off of that and knowing that Fields was the better quarterback. Now, obviously, everything's high in sight now and what you're able to see with the two. But Fields was the guy at Georgia, and Kirby Smart couldn't get off of Jake Fromm. There was a little bit of that, I think, with Dan Mullen, but nowhere near as much. And I think after today, I think if I had to put money down, I would say Anthony Richardson will be the starter against Georgia. That's just my personal opinion. Mullen said that we'll evaluate quarterbacks. He just gave normal coach speak after the game. He didn't want to talk, just like he did against Kentucky. So I've agreed what Dan Mullen's done so far, starting Emory, because he's kind of had to, and I didn't think Anthony Richardson could throw the ball as well. But I mean, if Anthony Richardson, this is what I'll be interested to see. Does Georgia load the box? Because if Georgia can load the box, go man-to-man on the outside, And if Georgia can contain, not stop, if they can contain Anthony Richardson's run, Florida can't do anything. And Anthony Richardson can't be successful. Richardson has to be successful with Florida running the ball. That's with him using his legs. That's with Dameon Pierce running the ball well, throwing Davis and Wright as well. And then the offensive line getting to the second level. Because you saw today, there was a couple of times where I think it was the first two drives, Richardson threw a pick, but there was two drives they couldn't run on the first and second down, and it's 3rd and 10, and then it's like, good luck. So that's how Anthony Richardson is successful. If he's the guy, I think he will be going forward against Georgia. Yeah. LSU ran for almost 500 yards in their first 6 games, 321 a day. Yep. And Florida had only given up. I want to know how many yards Florida had given up rushing, because it was 91 against Bama, and it was a little over 100 against Kentucky. I don't think there's any way that they gave up more than 200 in any game this season. So, again, I think it's like a Jet dropped in a comment from what Pat Dooley said. This isn't the Florida team I thought it was. I thought Florida was what they showed in their first 4 games, and that's running the football, that's using the quarterback's legs with both Emory and Anthony Richardson, that's playing good defense, containing the run, making the other team throw the ball. And it's since Kentucky, I don't know if something's happened internally with the team, if something's happened with the coaching staff, but the Florida's script has completely flipped. And also, think about this: 2020, Florida's 8-1. Florida they will host LSU in 2020, and since then it's been a loss to LSU, it's been a loss to Bama, it's been a loss to Oklahoma, 2 cupcake wins, loss to Bama, Tennessee win, which was a good win, lose to Kentucky, Vandy win, and then another loss to LSU today. I think that makes it 2-6. Excuse me, 4-6 in your since that LSU game last year, and everything leading up to that point was, Gator Nation was high on Dan Mullen. Gator Nation was expecting big things, and it's been a complete 180. Yeah, I saw this on Twitter too. Thanks for dropping this, Davis. Richardson said, I can't really speak on that. Time is the only thing that sells right now. I'm a Gator. And I think that he was asked, are you going to leave after next year if you're not the guy? There's no way that Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson are both going to be on the roster next year, because it's too easy to hop in the portal and go play somewhere else right away. Either Anthony Richardson is going to be tired because he knows he's the better guy and he's going to leave, or Emory Jones is going to be tired of sitting behind Dan Mullen, sitting behind Franks, sitting behind Trask, and now Anthony Richardson, and he'll leave. That's the only 2 options. Jones, I'll do a couple more comments if you guys want to drop any questions, then I'll let you guys, and I'll be out of here. The Gators' final report. Why don't you bring back the DC that won you a natty here, Charlie Strong? Strong should have been on the staff last year. If you remember, I forget. I guess he was still a free agent because it was still in the offseason. And at the time, I was producing a show with Pat Dooley at WRUF with him and Jeff Cardozo, and Pat Dooley told me, like, personally, he said that Pat Dooley talked to Charlie Strong on the phone, and he said that he was going to Florida. And then I don't know what happened in between that conversation and then when Charlie Strong signed to go to Alabama, but he was supposed to be on the staff, and he wasn't going to be a coordinator. He was going to be like some assistant type. I can't remember exactly, but obviously helping out with the defense, and he didn't. So I don't know if what his reasoning is, but yeah, that would be nice. Ashton, do you think Dan Mullen will be fired along with the Grantham? No, Mullen's not going to be fired. Mullen could go 7-5, and he's not being fired this year. Grantham has a good chance of being fired. If I had to pick one of the two. Yeah, that's what it was. It was an analyst gig. Thank you. I couldn't remember exactly what it was. Yeah, it was an analyst gig. Yeah, I agree with you. Mullen's not going anywhere. He just got an extension. Scott Strickland. Scott Strickland is a guy that wants to win, but he wants to win. He's one of those guys that wants to win the right way. I know I'm not trying to segue into this, but Scott Strickland, the reason why he gave an extension to Mike White is because Mike White is one of the few coaches that has gotten to Sweet 16s, Elite Eights, has gotten Florida into the tournament every year, and he's not in trouble with the FBI. So I know a lot of Gator Nation won't agree with that, but that's the reason why. And that's not my words. That's Pat Dooley. If you look at a lot of the good coaches, a lot of them are in trouble with the FBI, and that's not the situation with Florida. So he likes having his guys, and he signed Mullen and Mike White to that extension in the summer. Mullen's through 2026. I forget what Mike White is for basketball, but that's a different discussion. Last comment, and I'll let you guys get out of here. This is the Gators' final reports, and I'm your host, Dylan Denmark. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark, as DYLEN, or Coach My Podcast on the Mark with Denmark on YouTube. We're on at the Florida Gators channel and the SEC channel to catch all of the post-game shows at the Voice of College Football, and catch Mark Rogers tonight as he recaps college football. Danny says, how come we couldn't stop the counterplay? Damn, number 3, Price had a highlight reel. Yeah. I mean, LSU, it was pretty much LSU just down blocked. You had a pull and guard, and Florida didn't do anything to change it. That's just man-on-man football. And LSU went with the mentality, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, I don't know how else to scheme it up other than, well, Florida just didn't play a sign of football, and they didn't hold their gaps, and just didn't get blown with the ball. All right, guys, that'll do it. We did just over an hour. LSU comes out with an upset, 49-42. Let me do some housekeeping. This is the Gators' final report. Catch me on Twitter, right there at Dylan_Denmark, at the Voice of College Football. Thank you guys for watching. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and check out all the shows: Georgia, Oklahoma, Iowa, a whole lot of other shows. The LSU show, if you want to catch the LSU piece to the Florida LSU game. Catch all those shows right here at the Voice of College Football. For me, Dylan Denmark, with a Florida loss, 49-42. We won't be on next week. Florida has a bye, but we'll be back here 2 weeks. Florida has the game against what will probably be the number 1 team in Georgia, in Jacksonville. For me, signing off, Dylan Denmark. So long, everybody.